Let's look at the sample student essay number 2 as an example of something that works, or at least partially works, for a causal essay analysis and argument. Now, with the title, I've got some questions. Online learning effect on students. That's absolutely true. That's what this is about. But does that engage you? Is that a title that would lead you to keep moving in your argument? I don't know. Titles should not only accurately display what an essay is about, they should also engage the audience. Now, this thesis is a really good thesis. And if you notice, when you click on it, you can get to my comments over here. And it's meaningful because it makes an argument about 3 useful benefits, and notice that it's a limited argument. These benefits only occur when online education is used correctly. Because remember, one thing that we're looking at in chapter 14 is the fact that cause and effect should always be limited, because there's rarely in physics or in life something that is always already true. Like laws of gravity, for instance. That's a really basic law that covers 99.999% of human existence. But if you move outside of the gravitational pull of Earth, such as you take a trip to the moon and you're in a lunar landing, the laws of gravity that we have on Earth no longer apply to you. So, understanding things like that, the limits of when something is true is really important for cause and effect. Now, let's look at the use of evidence, because that's the real thing we're emphasizing with this essay. So here in paragraph 2, we have evidence that is hypothetical. Well, online learning is beneficial to people in several ways. Well, first of all, instead of a sentence like that, you should have the specific thing that this paragraph is focusing on. What is the one beneficial thing that this is looking at? And when you get to that support, you shouldn't have a hypothetical situation like Johnny is too scared to go on to school because he lives with anxiety. That may be absolutely true, but instead of a hypothetical like this, which is not tied to a specific experience, you can either tie it to a personal, or for something like this, which is really personal, instead of being hypothetical, use research. In this article by Psychology Today, it says 52% of kids are too scared to go to school because they live with anxiety. That's way better than Johnny is too scared to go to school because he lives with anxiety, which is just something that this writer has made up. Now down here, where it's giving a quote from a specific source, this is a lot stronger than this very vague and non-meaningful hypothetical up here. Oh, and this is how you should do a block quote. So notice when you have a sentence that is more than 3 lines, it should be indented and moved away from the rest of the text here. And it not only has a cite, but a quote like this should be used very sparingly and doesn't count towards word count, because this is not your original argument. Down in paragraph 4, this is a more effective use of evidence. So the evidence that's used here has to do with very specific data. 38.9%. And its revenues were forecasted to grow more than 5 times what its revenues were in 2013. This number, or all of these numbers and these data points, are a reason to use a quote rather than to paraphrase and cite this evidence, because those specific numbers are important to the argument, and along with this material that was paraphrased before. which is in the specific place, that is Africa, between 2012 and 2017, where online learning was having this enormous growth rate and making this enormous social impact. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, all of the works that you use need to be cited in a works cited page. And this has a square around it because it's from your book, not because you should ever have those squares in your Word documents. But notice that these full MLA citations for all the sources here, and this came, of course, from your chapter, these sources not only prevent this from being plagiarism, these sources also give this credibility. You all have a credibility in your arguments because you're professionals, because they come from your experiences, but also because you have used credible sources to back up what you say. So this comes from EBSCO, this comes from Questia, and this comes from the Daily Herald. EBSCOhost and perhaps Questia are academic sources. Daily Herald is definitely, so it's a newspaper that anyone can get a hold of, is a popular source, not an academic source. But all of these are meaningful sources, especially for an English 101 class. And so this combination, especially with something from EBSCOhost, which has things like Innovations in Education and Teaching International. Does that sound like something you would pick up just to read if you were not in the profession of education and teaching, the way you might pick up People magazine or your weekly newspaper? No, probably not. So this is a professional or academic source that has a ton of credibility. Questia, Talent and Development, also is a professional source, even if it's not academic, has a lot of credibility. Daily Herald is a daily newspaper, has less credibility, but is still a meaningful source that has editors and other people checking it, as well as the community, and so is a good source for a paper like this. So this combination is an excellent collection of sources to make this argument. The only other thing you could use here is your own personal experience, and because it's online education, you all, because you're taking English 101 online, have that you could include.